Will Triston McKenzie pitch again this season? Will Michael Brantley be of any use for your fantasy baseball team upon his return? Join me today as I talk about the best players to stash for Week 20 on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we are your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Matt, my brother, has the night off tonight. You know, he's out seeing the Phillies game. Everything is okay with him. But guys, if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit the little bell below. It subscribes you to the channel, also gives you a notification of every time we drop a new episode. And lastly, most importantly, subscribe to us on the Subtext website. Through Subtext, it's a one-on-one, in-depth, personalized experience through text messaging. You get instant alerts of prospect call-ups, injuries, and just much, much more than we can offer in this 30-minute podcast. And guys, today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or enter the promo code LockedOnMLB for a free white tech hat with any order. You won't want to take Bird Dogs off your list. We promise you that. And Locked On Fantasy Baseball fans, we have a fully loaded episode for you today. As always, let us be your team secret weapon, where we provide you with the best players to stash heading into Week 20. And all right, guys, before, I head into the stashes and all that stuff, there was somebody that kind of got the call yesterday that Matt and I didn't touch upon. So I wanted to bring him up real quick and just give you a little brief my thoughts on him. And it's Noel Marte of the Cincinnati Reds. And, Noel had a little buzz behind his name. He's been, in the minors since he's 17 years old in 2019. He gets the call, after playing 92 games in the minors this year, 348 at-bats, 69 runs, 20 doubles, 4 triples, 11 homers, 45 RBIs, 18 steals. And you know what? The strikeout to walk ratio is not so bad at 43 walks to 70 strikeouts, 279 batting average. So with Noel, what can you expect? He's got a little bit of power, more known for that speed, a couple of seasons over 20 steals in the minors. Depends where, the Reds really want to hit him in that lineup, consistently. He hit 7th in that opening game, and we're still waiting for guys like Fraley and India to come back from injury. So it's yet to be seen if this is more of a small stint for Noel or if he's going to be there for the rest of the season. I do like his upside at 11% owned. With Noel, though, I'm taking Mason Wynn over him, and Nolan Schwannel are, kind of similar to me, but I'd probably take Noel over Nolan. So with Noel, I kind of just wanted to bring his name up. Didn't want you guys to think we didn't see it or we forgot about him or anything like that. He did go 1 for 4 in his first game with a stolen base. So as I said, a little bit more speed upside than power, and the Reds have kind of been mediocre, but that lineup does have a lot of upside. So, if you missed out on Mason Wynn and you really need a shortstop, Noel's not a bad option, but he's not somebody I'm going out of my way to pick up. All right, guys, so let's get into the reason why we're all here today. Let's talk about stashes, our normally weekly routine here at Locked On. And let's talk about our first one. Let's talk about Triston McKenzie. So now the thing with Triston McKenzie is, he's had a couple of arm injuries. He had the strained right teres muscle, and then, he had a sprained right elbow. And last time we talked about Triston McKenzie, my brother Matt gave a good point, so I'm going to bring it up here to start. It is a little scary, and sometimes it could lead to, bigger issues down, further in his career next year and further on. Might have some, potential problems in the future. But, McKenzie has been throwing without issue. I think he's up to almost 120 feet. Him and Shane Bieber are starting to get ready towards bullpens. If McKenzie does make a return, it's going to be, towards that end stretch of the season there in your playoffs. But I think the thing is with McKenzie, the upside is truly there. We all know what he did last year, and if you don't, I'll get into that in a second. McKenzie is 59% owned on Yahoo, and as I mentioned, had that breakout year last year. I'd love to see somebody like McKenzie put a little bit more weight on just to secure that 6'5" frame. He's only 165 pounds. If he can get up to like 185, I think that's where he would be, a lot more solid and just better off. But McKenzie last year as a 24-year-old had a 2.96 ERA across 30 starts, 191 innings, 190 strikeouts, and an 0.95 whip. McKenzie's just kind of always been known for that control, has always had a pretty strong whip throughout his whole career. And I think he makes for a fine stash at 59% owned on Yahoo if he's out there in your leagues and you have the open spot on your IL, throw him on there. It's worth it just to see where the thing goes. Worst case scenario, you know what? If you're in a keeper league or anything like that, you can play keep away for next year, just so somebody else doesn't have him on their team. And hey, you know what? He might be a fine keeper option if he looks good in spring training, if he makes it all the way through. There's no further injury with McKenzie. I just really love the kid's upside, and I'm a big Triston McKenzie fan. So you can at least hang on to him and, see where the thing goes. I'm not running out of my way to, take anybody off of my IL to put McKenzie on. But I think the thing is, if you have that extra spot, if you have unlimited IL spots, McKenzie is definitely somebody's way that you want to look towards. And let's move on here. Let's talk about this next guy who's actually going to return today as you guys are listening to this, and it's Tanner Houck. Now, with Tanner Houck, definitely has some upside. And as I said, he returns, today as you're listening to this. It's going to be at Houston. Tough matchup. If I'm picking him up, I don't think I'm throwing him out there against Houston. I kind of want to see where it goes because he does have some upside. Boston hasn't been horrible. Looks like his first 2 starts are going to be tough because it's Houston, then it's the Dodgers. But after that, he might get KC, which they have been better of late. But you know what? On the season, they haven't been that good. So you know what? Maybe if one of those 2 first starts go good for Houck, I'll throw him out there against KC. Tanner Houck, I'll speak to you on that upside I'm talking about. He is a big body, the 6'5", 226. Would love if McKenzie could get there. He's probably not ever going to, though. But you know what? Let's talk about, let's exclude this year for Tanner Houck because he's, been riddled with injuries. But let's talk about his first 3 years combined in the majors. Through 20 starts, 53 games, a 3.02 ERA, even got 9 saves, 146 innings, 164 Ks with a 1.12 whip and a 2.95 FIP, which is fielding independent pitching, kind of an ERA indicator, shows you where that ERA should be rather than where it is. And he's right around his ERA with that FIP, which I like to see. Tanner Houck definitely has some upside. As I mentioned, he's a big boy. And, he's still fairly young at 27 years old. He's got upside. So I think if you missed out on some of the bigger names and you kind of just want to throw a dart in your AL onlys and, your 15-mans and deeper than that, Tanner Houck, I think I threw out his ownership. If I didn't, I'm going to throw it out again. 8% rostered for Tanner Houck. So widely available. As I mentioned, if you missed out on some of the bigger names, you can go out there and get Houck. But before I move on, I talk about a Marlins pitcher who is, somebody that I really like, a Brewers pitcher who, was going toe-to-toe with Spencer Strider for a little bit there in the first half of last year. And I get into some of these bats. I mentioned Michael Brantley up top, and I got a couple of other good ones for you. Just want to talk to you about today's sponsor, and it is Bird Dogs. With Bird Dogs, if you're looking for clothes that redefine comfort and style, look no further than Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs makes you look good with Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabrics that look just like khaki but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice any movement. Bird Dogs uses an anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Bird Dogs shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon but fit way better. Bird Dogs just sent Matt and I some more gear. They threw us one of those hats that you get if you do an order. They threw us a couple of more pairs of shorts. And it's just been a great summer having all this Bird Dogs gear to wear. Been getting compliments on them everywhere I go. I got, some of my guy friends saying, hey, where'd you get those shorts? I need to get me a pair. And everyone I know that has got Bird Dogs, gear absolutely loves it. So if you want to join Matt and I in the Bird Dogs craze, you go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. And when you enter the promo code LockedOnMLB, they're throwing in one of those free white tech hats with every order. And dear everydayers and new listeners, we have an incredible opportunity for you to support the show and enjoy some fantastic perks along the way, introducing our Diamonds Club on the Subtext website. By becoming a member, you not only contribute to the show's success, but also gain access to exclusive benefits, get your hands on waiver wire rankings, call-up alerts, injury updates, instant reactions, and enjoy direct access to us for all of your burning fantasy baseball questions. Plus, you can try it out completely free for 14 days. Your support means the world to Matt and I, and we can't wait to connect with you on this exciting journey. Join our Diamond Club on the Subtext website today, and let's take your fantasy baseball experience to new heights. And guys, I keep saying it, and I'll continue to say it. Our listener league, is going to be, we're going to start one for the first time next year. And if you're already in the Subtext, Diamond Club, or if you joined before September 1st and you're still in there, key thing, you got to be in the Diamond Club on September 1st when we do the drawing, and you'll get that, chance to join our listener league for next year. Come play with the pros, show us what you guys got. And it's just going to be a fun way to, get to interact with you guys, playing fantasy baseball, doing something that we all love together. So let's move on here and keep things pushing with the show, though. Let's talk about our next guy, and it's another guy just kind of been banged up all year. It's Trevor Rogers. I really liked what I saw from him at the beginning of the season before he got banged up after, a mediocre year last year. It looked like he was figuring things out at the end of last year. Through his, first couple of starts this year, Rogers had 18 innings pitched. He got 1 win, 19 Ks, a 4 ERA, and a 1.22 whip. But don't let that fool you. He did look promising, in those last couple of starts before he went down. And I just think there's a lot of upside with Trevor Rogers. If you're not familiar with Trevor Rogers, he had that Rookie of the Year run back in 2020, I believe it was. Yes, that is correct. 2021, I'm sorry. He came in second place for Rookie of the Year that year. He had a 2.64 ERA, 25 starts, 133 innings, 157 Ks, and a 1.15 whip. Now, with Trevor Rogers, I don't think the control is going to be fantastic, but if he can pitch to like a 1.20 whip with, some strong strikeout numbers and he could suppress runs, I think that's where Trevor Rogers is going to live. He's 8% owned on Yahoo. Kid's just got a lot of upside. As I mentioned, that rookie year was fantastic for Trevor Rogers, and he is, on his way back. Where is he at in his recovery? He hadn't been throwing of the last update that I saw of him, which was about a month ago. I don't see anything too much more recent here for Rogers. So I'm assuming that he's, getting ready to start throwing and all of that stuff. He could be a guy, like McKenzie that is back, towards the end of, that playoff run. It could just be somebody you want to sneak onto your roster in those deeper leagues and stuff like that, just to have a chance. Starting pitchers getting so thin right now. There's hardly anything on the waiver wire. So that's why we do this kind of episode, just to throw some names at you that, could potentially help your team, in that playoff run. With Rogers being 8% owned, he's available in some of those NL onlys probably. He's available in those 15-mans and deeper. And that's probably where I'm looking at Trevor Rogers. But with that being said, let's move on to our next guy here. Somebody I gave you a little tease about not too long ago, and it's Aaron Ashby. Man, oh man, do I love the thought of Aaron Ashby. I don't know how much I actually love him, but last year, he had that little run there where, he just looked absolutely electric. I know that if you look at those numbers last year and you're like, Dom, what are you talking about? He wasn't that awesome. But he had that little stretch that I'm trying to grab those numbers for you guys so I can give you a little deep dive into, why I think Aaron Ashby was, so fantastic. And I have those here for you right now. Looks like it was through his first 11 starts, right? So through Ashby's first 11 starts last year, 5 starts, 11 games overall, was 40 innings pitched. He had 51 strikeouts, a 2.70 ERA, a 3.26 FIP. Batters were hitting 207 against him, and that whip was a little bit over 1, like a 105 whip for Aaron Ashby. So, he was looking really strong. He got lit up a little bit, and then he had another little bit of run towards the end of the season. Let's talk about that as well, because I'm just trying to give you the upside of Ashby. He's got good breaking stuff. The fastball's pretty strong as well. So there's just a lot to like about him. So let's talk about, His last 10 starts weren't fantastic, but they were pretty strong with 48 innings, 53 strikeouts, a 4.25 ERA. Batters were hitting 250 against him. And, that whip was a little bit higher, around like a 110 whip. But, through these, last 10 starts, he had a 5 earned run game and he had a 6 earned run games. If you take those two out, you don't really like to do that because, it's a part of the result. But if you take those two out, it looked absolutely fantastic. He had a lot of big strikeout games. He had a 9 strikeout game, an 8 strikeout game. So if Aaron Ashby can ever really just put it all together and, be good for a prolonged stretch of time, I think he's going to be great. The Brewers had just signed him last year to a 5-year deal. So that shows that the Brewers have faith in him. He's only 25 years old, Aaron Ashby is. So I truly, truly think that, there's a lot of upside here. He's not my favorite guy we're talking about today, but you know what? Aaron Ashby is probably right behind McKenzie, but I think he's also probably the closest that of, returning to anybody that I've talked about so far. The last update here is coming from this Tuesday. The Brewers are talking about, Ashby, closing in on a rehab assignment very, very soon. We might need to see about 3 starts from him so he can be back early in your playoff run. At 5% owned for Ashby, I think it's almost a must-add at this point. If you need that starting pitching depth, I'd say go out there and put Ashby on your roster now. Stash him before the news really breaks that he's out there doing this rehab assignment and he looks fantastic. So it's just the opportunity is probably going to not be there for much longer with a guy like Ashby. But I think that's enough with my long breath Aaron Ashby rant. Let's move on to this next guy. Let's move on to the bats. Let's talk about Michael Brantley. Now, Michael Brantley, Old Man River, he's got his walker and, his cane with him. But you know what? I bet you Michael Brantley could still hit that baseball because he's done it his whole career and he's been pretty solid at it, right? So Michael Brantley has already been on a rehab assignment for 12 games, 35 at-bats. He had 7 runs. He has 2 doubles, a homer, 9 RBIs. And get this. This is what I love. I love this statistic. 11 walks to 1 strikeout for Michael Brantley in this 12 games as a 36-year-old in the minors, 286 batting average. Brantley's going to come back and hit. That's what he's going to do. Dusty Baker loves him. I think, honestly, he's going to hit near the top of that lineup because that's where, he normally gets slotted in. Brantley at 4% owned could be such a sneaky, sneaky stash for you right now. If you need the bat in your lineup, he could produce runs for you. He could produce batting average for you and potentially maybe kick in a few RBIs. As for the power, I'm not really expecting much power from Brantley in his last almost full season in 2021. He played 121 games. He only had 8 homers. So I'm not really predicting too many homers for him, but definitely could help you out in runs and batting average, as I said. So if those are 2 statistics that you're looking for, I think you can go out there and feel pretty good about, giving Michael Brantley an ad. But guys, before we move on real quick, and I talk about Cincinnati Reds player, talk about my boy Matt, one of my boy Matt's favorite players. I'm sure he would appreciate this if he was here on the St. Louis Cardinals. And we talk about somebody that honestly has kind of been a letdown for the Seattle Mariners this year. Just got a quick break for you guys. All right, guys, and we're back here. And let's move on to this next fellow. It is Jake Fraley. So with Fraley, it's starting to get a little bit crowded there in Cincinnati, especially with the Noel Marte call-up. So I just don't know what they're going to do here. So it looks like the last update on Fraley is that, he will eventually need to undergo surgery on his toe, but, they're going to let him play through it. He wants to play through it. So I don't know if the production is going to be as good as it's been this year because Fraley actually has kind of had like somewhat of a breakout, like strong year here with 40 runs, 15 homers, 63 RBIs, 20 steals, 263 batting average through 289 at-bats. I mean, those numbers are good-looking numbers for Fraley here. I think it's worth the stash at 56% owned. He's getting a little bit up there. So, I think if you really just need somebody, if you're getting a little bit desperate at this point, go out there, pick up Fraley if he's in your league. He's got some speed, but with that toe being hurt, I don't know how much he's going to run. There's some pop. That Cincinnati Reds lineup, I know they've been struggling of late. I mentioned that at the top with Noel V, but there's a lot of upside. If they really all start clicking and you see De La Cruz and McLean and Strand and, the rest of those boys just go out there and start, doing their thing, they catch fire in a heartbeat. So, Fraley gets in the middle of that lineup and, starts making some noise there too, as he had been earlier in the year. I think there's some upside here. So you know what? Go out there and add Fraley if you're looking for a chance. If you want to throw a dart, go out there and add Fraley. So let me move on to this next guy, though. Let's talk about Lars the Nootbaar. So Lars has been really, really strong of late before he went down with the injury, right? I'll give you the last 30 days total for Nootbaar, and it's just some big numbers, right? 17 runs, 6 homers, 12 RBIs, a steal, and a 367 batting average over his last 79 at-bats for Nootbaar. I mean, that's just tremendous production. Matt and I were kind of drafting Nootbaar as a sleeper everywhere this year, and at the beginning of the year, didn't really look like it was paying off. But you know what? Of recently, the kid's been on fire. He's out with an abdomen injury after he fouled the ball off himself on Wednesday. That's why Mason Wynn got the call. Nootbaar's down to 71% owned. It's a little bit higher normally than what we like to talk about, but I just think if he's out there, you add him. He's probably my favorite bat out of all of these guys. If everyone is healthy with all the bats we're talking about, I think Nootbaar's easily my favorite. Just the production this year has been great. I think Nootbaar's going to have a solid future, ahead of him at some point. The Cardinals got to, move to the new young guys. Goldie's not going to be around forever. Nolan Arenado's not going to be around forever. They've lost Pujols and a lot of other big names over the last, 5-10 years. So they really, Adam Wainwright, Yachty, all of those guys. So they really got to move into that new guard. And I think Nootbaar might be leading that new guard at 6'3", 210, big lefty Nootbaar. Still only 25 years old. We all saw, that breakout, last year where, he showed us what he's capable of. He's continuing into this year. Just really think the kid's got huge upside. So I know he may not be out there in a lot of your leagues, but you know what? The 29% he's available in, I think you need to go out there and you need to snag the Lars Nootbaar. So I got one player left for you guys today. Sorry, keeping it a little bit on the short side. I'm not feeling so hot myself over here, but you know what? I got to give you guys that fantasy baseball information. And let's move on to Jarred Kelenic. I believe Kelenic, I have to double check this, but I believe he kicked a water cooler or something along the lines of that. And, he fractured his left foot. So, they were originally expecting a 4 to 6 week timetable. It looks like he's progressing nicely. He just shed his walking boot and he's going to, begin baseball activity soon. Kelenic's down to 37% owned. He started off the year like a house on fire and we all really thought he was going to finally live up to that hype. He did slow down over the last few months, but you know what? Kelenic, 43 runs, 11 homers, 45 RBIs, 12 steals, 252 batting average, 326 at-bats. I firmly believe if Kelenic would have stayed healthy and, kept it going, my prediction of a 2020 season for him would have been pretty much spot on. He has still a little bit of time left. I don't know if he makes it back in time to do 2020. Maybe he'll get to 15-15. But Kelenic's still a lot of upside for him. If I think if you asked anybody, how old is Kelenic? 27, 28. Kelenic's still only 24 years old, and he just turned 24 last month in July. So I still think there's a lot of upside for Kelenic. I truly, truly think that this kid will figure it out at some point. He might just be a late bloomer. But as for fantasy purposes, I kind of think it's another situation where you can kind of just, if you have the IL spot, you're in a deeper league, you kind of, that AL only, that 15-man or deeper, you pick them up, you throw them on your IL if you have the extra spot for now, and just see where the thing goes. This kid might come back and he might, figure things out and be rocking and rolling like he was, at the beginning of the season. And I think he's got a lot to prove still. I saw an interview with him after he, did that childish thing and he kicked I forget what he exactly, water cooler or kicked something in the dugout there and he fractured his foot. He was just very upset. He was very upset at himself and his actions. And, I don't think we were all making the best decisions at 24 years old. So you give the kid a break. He's got a lot to prove. So I think he could come back and he can, contribute to your fantasy team. And almost 5 categories. He can give you runs, RBIs, homers, steals. The batting average is still a little suspect. But, if he really gets it rocking and rolling and Seattle puts him in a position to succeed in that lineup, Kelenic can definitely get it done. But all right, guys, that is all for today. Thank you for, trucking through this episode with me. As I said, I'm a little bit under the weather, but you know what? We got to get out there and we got to give you that fantasy baseball knowledge. And just truly thank you to all of our everydayers and new listeners for sticking with us. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget, join us on Subtext, guys. It's the time of year where everyone's transitioning to football. You can stay locked on with us through Subtext. Ask us all of your fantasy baseball questions. Get instant alerts right to your phone with prospect call-ups, injury alerts, waiver wire rankings, just a lot more than we offer in this 30-minute podcast. But guys, that's all for me today. So please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review if you haven't already done so. And just once again, thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. Tune in for a new episode tomorrow where Matt and I will be back, and we're going to be talking to you guys about some more prospects that might get this cup of coffee, in this upcoming September. We're past that threshold where teams will still have control of these guys. So we might see a few more call-ups, and you want to make sure you know who these names are. But guys, until tomorrow, see ya.